All right, what's up? What's up? It's your boy Dwell, aka Mr. J, aquí en la casa, coming at you sideways with another episode of Las Different Voices. Hopefully, everybody's having a good one. Today, I have Alicia en la casa. Alicia, what's your last name?
Rojas.
Alicia Rojas en la casa.
Woo.
How you doing today?
Very good. Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you for coming by. I appreciate it. I know we talked about this a little bit.
Yeah, it's been forever.
And we're here. Yeah. That's how it seems to be, because some people do say, hey, tomorrow I'm available, but other people it's like, give me a month, you know. But
yeah, it's been 5 months since you asked me, so
months.
I'm sorry. It was really busy during the last 6 months of my life.
Hey, it's never late. You're here today, and once again, thank you. I appreciate it.
Thank you for having me.
How's your day going? I know we were talking about it a little bit, but how's your day?
I'm finally just catching up on normal life since the opening.
Been busy, huh?
So I've been busy. So today I've just been catching up with this week with slowing down, working in my garden, taking care of my dog, running errands, doing all the administrative part of my work, which is not a lot of fun, but it's got to be done.
What is your work?
I'm a full-time artist.
Okay. I thought you actually had a regular 9 to 5 aside from your artwork.
I used to. I was in the corporate world for many years, and it helped me, be a homeowner, and it helped me start putting my kid through college. But I made a transition 2 years ago into being a full-time artist. So it's
also 2 years.
2 years. 2 years.
Cool,
2 years.
Cool.
But I've been an artist throughout the whole...
For your whole life.
Right.
You're probably bored with it, right?
And, I was a single mom. I'm a single mom. And so I worked my corporate job, and then I took care of my kid. And then, the few nights that I would have off or weekends, then I would do community art projects for years. And
we will get into that. I'll speak a little bit on it. But to me, it was a coincidence how I met you, I think... I don't remember who was posting.
Fernando, maybe?
Somebody was posting it on Instagram and tagging your mural that you did in Costa Mesa. Mm-hmm. And I was just clicking through it, just when you're going through stuff, you just click it. And I read a little bit about it. And what a coincidence that same day, they were reposting it because obviously they vandalized it, right? Mm-hmm. And I didn't even think about it. I didn't see where it was or nothing. And then that same day, I went to go see a job over there.
Oh, wow.
And I was passing by and I was like, wait a minute. I just saw this.
Oh, wow. That's so cool.
So then I thought about it and I saw you painting there. And I'm like, should I get off? And I'm like, you know what? I'm just going to do it.
I'm so glad you did.
And yeah, I'm glad too, because it was cool. It was interesting being there and seeing you and seeing what you did and learning a little bit about your art mural and then seeing the other stuff you've been doing, I've been seeing, obviously what you did with this last Cinco de Mayo weekend, right?
Yes, it was the opening of my solo exhibition.
Yeah. So let's talk a little bit before we go into it, just a kind of a little introduction. So where are you from? Are you from Santana?
I was born in Colombia.
Born in Colombia.
South America, in Bogota. My family was from Bogota and Medellin.
Oh, wow.
We immigrated to the United States in the late 80s, and that's when our country was us at most peak of violence, the Pablo Escobar, la narco guerra,
Okay, so that was around, you were around, mm-hmm. You got to live in Colombia while that was still...
Yeah, it was the 80s.
Well, Pablo Escobar was still around?
He was alive.
Wow.
Yeah. There were bombs going off in Bogota.
And you remember all that?
Yeah, absolutely.
How old were you, if you don't mind?
12.
12 years old?
I was 12.
Wow. So yeah, you already had a good open mind and ears for what's going on, right?
So my family decided to... And I had a lot of privilege in Colombia. So it's something that I don't have the common immigration story here. We had a tourist visa, mm-hmm. So I was able to come in a plane and overstay my visa. But, my dad was a business person in Colombia, and I was upper middle class. I went to a private Catholic school.
Oh, okay.
And then when everything fell apart, we just became immigrants, came here with nothing.
Oh, okay.
But we were able to at least fly.
Okay.
And... just overstay our visas, and my parents requested political asylum.
Because Colombia is pretty far.
Yeah, it's the first country of South America.
Wow.
So it's after all of Central America. It's
Yeah.
the first
And
country.
Mexico and then here.
Mhm.
Where did you come to Orange County when you got here?
I had an aunt who lived in Orange County,
Oh,
in Mission
okay.
Viejo, but we actually first immigrated to New York, New Jersey.
Oh,
I
okay.
had family back east, and we were there first for 2 years, and then my dad decided to move us across the country, and we ended up in Mission Viejo.
Oh, okay. And knowing people here, or you just?
My aunt.
Oh, okay, okay.
But the second day that we made it, we drove across the country from New Jersey. So I had been here for 2 years. So I was like about 14. And we drove with my mom and my dad across the country. They decided to leave back east and come join my aunt. And like the second day, you know, she wakes me up and she's like, mijita, vamos a desayunar. It's time, tenemos que ir a la Embajada de Santa Ana. I gotta, you know, let's take you to Santa Ana. And that was the second day. She drove us to La Cuatro.
Oh, okay.
And
When it was La Cuatro?
in La Cuatro, I mean, El Ritmo Latino was
Oh,
there.
yeah, I remember. I got to see that still.
Yeah, I mean, it was still the Fiesta Marketplace, and we ate, and it was a place of comfort because everybody spoke Spanish, and my mom could go to her doctor and they would speak Spanish, or the dentist, and this is where they would find jobs, and where we got credit for the first time to buy furniture, you know, right on the furniture stores on 4th Street.
Wow.
A lot of people don't think about, you know, when you first arrive, like obviously you're undocumented, so you have to go through all these challenges to just get started. But as a place in the city mostly built by immigrants, or, you know, in Santana, there were a lot more structures to help a recent immigrant. Like a lot of people spoke Spanish, and la gente es muy buena, you know, like they refer you, puedes ir a trabajar aquí, or you don't need papers here, or so that was,
it was help.
Absolutely. Santana was the center of downtown for Latinos, I would say, for immigrants. Absolutely.
Yeah, and
no matter from Orange County, you would come here.
Wow. Yeah. I mean, I'm not.
Now I'm a resident. I mean, I'm a Santanera, you know.
But yeah, it's a lot of Spanish speaking people here, so y gente sigue llegando aquí también, you know?
Yeah.
Gente sigue llegando from everywhere too, you know.
Yeah.
Guatemala, El Salvador, Colombia. I haven't really met too many people from Colombia here, maybe because
there's a lot.
I ran into them.
Yeah, I mean, I just actually during this whole process that I was doing with the bees. I was working in my studio one day, and I had it open. My studio is also in my home, in my garage. I turned it into my art studio, and so I had the door open, and there was 2 ladies that were lost, and they only spoke Spanish, and I was really surprised when they talked to me in Spanish because they're Afro-Colombian, and I didn't expect them to speak Spanish. And they're like, estamos perdidas, we're lost. And then I heard her accent, and I'm like, where are you from? Oh, somos de Colombia. I was like, they had just arrived here, the refugees. They actually traveled through the whole Central America on the La Bestia, on the train.
So that's far, huh?
Yeah, and they just arrived here in Santana, you know, and they're refugees, and they're from Colombia. So these stories continue to happen to this day.
Wow. Yeah. And then the train, I mean, I only know about that.
Have you heard about it?
Yeah. Through TV, you know.
Yes.
Not through somebody that's written on it, but it's dangerous from what I hear.
Yeah, it was very dangerous. One of them fell.
Wow.
I mean, she was telling me that she thought she was going to die and be run over, and the daughter and her
so it was
traveled
just 2
together.
of them came
2
together?
women. Mm-hmm.
Wow. Mm-hmm. That's scary too.
And they jumped the train, you know, to get on it, and they jumped to
While
get
it's
off
moving,
because it doesn't really stop.
Wow.
In certain areas because it crosses Central America, so that's why a lot of migrants take it.
Wow.
And it's very dangerous, of course, mostly for women as well, but you still have people risking their lives to reach the American dream, you know. And
once you're here, it's like a trabajar.
It's la jaula de oro, no, until you are able to get your papers, if you're able to.
Oh, okay.
Which is sometimes very hard process.
Yeah, I bet. I was noticing a little bit right now. Your accent is more accent from here. I mean,
well, I lived here most of my life. You know,
Spanish wise.
Spanish.
So I mean, from what I hear, I mean, Colombia on TV, and I know I've talked to Colombiano here and there, but their accent is still different. You sound like Mexican accent.
Maybe, definitely. I grew up in Orange County, right? And I assimilated mostly with Chicano culture, and I feel like I'm Mexican in my past life. It's just growing up here, and this is my people, the people I most assimilated with, right? Sí. So, you pick up dialect, right? En vez de decir, qué chimba, like, uy, qué chingón.
I mean, that's
or
what
whatever,
you pick up or hey, wait.
Yeah.
I don't know if they use that in Colombia. But
no way, no.
I try not to cuss. I do, but I try not to.
Yeah.
So I also want to talk a little bit about your art. We'll start from there.
Okay.
So what was your for those who don't know, I have actually the video when I met Alicia. And I recorded it. It's I was on my Instagram. I think it's even on my YouTube. I'm not sure, but if it's not on both of them, I know it's on one of them. So go and check that out. I have a picture of it there if you haven't seen it. But talk to us a little bit about what that mural represents, where it's at, and what happened the day I met you.
So when you met me, you were driving by, and I was at the wall because it had recently been tagged with hate speech.
Mm-hmm.
The mural was created during 2020, and 2020 was very crazy. Yes, it's been around for 3 years, almost 3 years. It was in August of 2023 when we started the project. The unveiling in 2020. The unveiling in 2020 was in October, and if you remember 2020, we were right in the middle of COVID, right? When we were still quarantining, mostly at home, had to be outside. And it was right before the elections, right? The 2020 elections. And Camilo Romero reached out to me. He
Who's that?
He is an organizer. He's a human rights civil lawyer who's been helping in Colombia. He is American, but he's also Colombian, with Colombian parents. He's first generation. And he founded an organization called Regeneración Colombia that tries to deal with trauma and peace initiatives. And he called me, he reached out to me. We had never met. He reached out to me through social media and said, hey, I'd like to talk to you a little bit about an idea that I have. I want to do a mural. And I said, do you have a wall secured? It's like the first thing you ask, right? It's like, it's actually my family's home. So I came over to see him, and, we met outside because it was the whole COVID situation. And he wanted to celebrate his family and the woman in his family, and also some historical women of OC. So we collaborated on the vision, and I kind of wanted to try a new method that I hadn't done for a while, which is digital. I've been doing a lot of community murals and art in Santa Ana before this for the last 10 years. So I wanted to try a different medium and have these portraits be able to be removable, so you can showcase them in different neighborhoods as you kept adding maybe poderosas. So the vision of the mural is to highlight women of color in Orange County, right? And maybe women in history, but also regular working class women of the neighborhood. When you think about regular working class women of the neighborhood, you think of somebody like my mother, or like my, gave up everything to come into this country, cleaned homes, took care of old people. And to me, that's a big part of what makes us thrive as immigrants when we get here. It's the ethic and the purpose of our families to continue to work and try to reach that American dream, and they give up almost a sense of self and their own dreams in order to support their families. And there's a lot of heroism in that, and I think women don't see themselves that way. So when we discuss about which woman we were going to uplift, we talked about historical figures like Modesta Avila, heroine from San Juan Capistrano. She died in the late 1800s. She was the first felon of Orange County.
Oh, for real?
And she...
First gangster.
Yes, Modesta Avila.
I got to look that up because I don't remember everybody that you had on there, but I was gonna ask you, how did you find?
Yeah, so Modesta's story is amazing. She owned a home with her family close to the railroad tracks now.
Here in Santana?
In San Juan
Oh, San
Capistrano.
Juan Capistrano.
And her home was sort of taken by eminent domain, and she was paid a price for it. She didn't feel that her family was paid well or compensated for the property. Throughout historians and research, the property was in somebody else's name. So there's still some things that are being investigated in her. But it talks about, like, de quién pertenece la tierra, you know, el que la trabaja. And she decided to protest the railroad company for the value of her land. And she made, you know, una pancarta, and she put, like, you got, you know, pay me for my land. You know, esta tierra es mía.
Sí.
And she hung a clothesline to stop the train from coming. So, like, she through some research, and some historians believe that her and her mother used to wash sheets and be, you know, washers and cleaning people.
Well, there was no dryers.
Right. So they would hang all the stuff, but I guess that they hung the clothesline to atravesar el tren, to not let the train go. So she was taken to jail for protesting.
Oh, wow.
And she had
it was different still. Freedom of speech for women back then, right?
And she owned land, and she was obviously Mexican American. She was brown. And she was tried twice. One was a hung jury, and the next one she was convicted to 3 years in San Quentin. So she was taken all the way to San Francisco up north in San Quentin, and where some historians believe that she died.
Oh, wow.
Some now believe that she might have left.
Escaped?
Or was released after 3 years. But it's an interesting story about land. It's an interesting story that the first felon happens to be a woman who was protesting the unfair taking of her home.
Wow.
And
that's
she
stuff
is,
we don't know, you know.
Yeah, and she's considered a heroine.
Wow.
I believe, and I might be mistaken, but I believe this is the first public work that highlights Modesta in Orange County. There is a little plaque about her in San Juan Capistrano by Los Rios, by the train station, and all that historical, but there hasn't been, like, a big work.
Yeah, no real
public work done before, right?
Yeah.
And then some of the other women is Frances Munoz, who was the first appointed Latina judge in the country. She happened to be appointed here in California.
California.
And she's from Orange County. She's Mexican American.
Oh, nice.
She passed away this year, but during the unveiling, she was there. She was 90 years old, and she was able to come, and she was like, I never thought I'd see myself on a wall. Like, she was a big judge also during the amnesty process in the 80s, and when Ronald Reagan gave amnesty where people could apply for it. So she held, like, free law clinics through the church in the weekends where she helped people fill out applications. So she did a lot of community work, but she was also a judge, right?
Yeah. That's cool.
And Dolores Huertas on the wall, even though she doesn't have a you know, she was obviously a partner with Cesar Chavez during the whole labor movement. She wasn't from Orange County, but a lot of the things that did happen through the orange fields here, and it helped our community through that process. So we wanted to highlight her. And Silvia Mendez from Mendez versus Westminster, which is the first desegregation case in the country before Brown versus the Board of Education happened here. You have, and then the regular, you know, immigrant women, and I should say they're heroes too, you know, immigrant families. So there's Cristina and her daughter and her grandkids. And it's just to highlight, you know, brown women and the heroism. The grandma that came here from Colombia, Cristina, Camilo's grandma, she came here with nothing too, and she's worked all her life. Her grandkids are college graduates, you know, they're law and medicine. So it kind of talks about the American dream right on that corner,
Yeah.
right? And our families, and we're highlighting women, and we're uplifting these stories and unrepresented voices that also are part of history in
Yes.
Orange County.
Yeah, a lot of us don't know that.
Right.
I'm one of them, you know.
So how do we balance all that? How do we continue to tell these stories, especially during 2020? I don't know if you remember, also Black Lives Matter
Yes.
protests were happening during the pandemic, right? We saw the horrible video of George Floyd, but we also saw protesters in the community, burning down symbols of the Confederacy.
Yes.
Public art that still highlight, Confederate soldiers or founding fathers that might have had to do with racism, and all that stuff was being torn down, which it reaffirmed what we were doing, right?
Yes.
That public art needs to tell old stories and also the unrepresented voices of history. I think it's a push to change what public art looks like in our
Yes.
country and what voices we do represent,
Okay.
So I found it fascinating that all these symbols were being burned down through protests, because governments and cities and states had not been really taking a look at, like, what are we celebrating?
Yeah.
What part of America are we are really celebrating? Are we going to continue to celebrate the Confederacy, or are we going to, do new public art? So that was a moment to try to put in this work of art, right, uplifting these women,
Yeah.
right? And unfortunately, 2 years later, almost 3 years later, 2 years, in October 31st, white supremacist from
Costa Mesa?
no, he's from San Clemente.
Oh, wow.
Somehow during Halloween, he got caught tagging the wall during bright daylight. And he wrote White Power and a couple of gang, WP1, I'm not sure.
Oh, okay. Yeah, because that's when I started seeing that. So.
And that's when you started seeing it. So I was there trying to fix some of the hateful words that were put on the mural. And now I'm happy to say that I'll be going back. Actually, hopefully by the end of this month, the whole mural will be restored. The portraits are coming back.
Are you getting help from other painters?
Yeah,
artists
yes.
to help
Maria
cover that up?
Angeles was there that day that you met.
Yeah.
And hopefully we're going to get some of the coalition artists.
Is
the
she
Santa Ana.
Colombian?
No, she's from Venezuela.
Oh, okay.
And she is an artist here in Orange County, and I met her at Grand Central Art Center, which is my residency. But when we go back to the wall, we'll summon all the coalition artists that help, like La Flaca Adriana Martinez was part of it, Jenny Bernal, Marina Aguilera also assisted, Maria, Brianna Negrete. So it was a whole team of local women artists that
That's cool.
Put that together. So it's a beautiful project, and it got a lot of attention, and I think the community really loves it.
Yeah.
And what I think the strength or the most beautiful part of this story is that the community, there was such a process really of engagement that they are safe keeping it. And as soon as, somebody saw somebody at the wall, they took pictures of him. They videotaped him. He got caught red-handed. Yeah.
And I wonder what was his motive, Maybe he was just drunk or something, but...
a lot of people have told me that, this person might have been doing drugs.
Yeah.
I said, drugs don't make you racist.
No, but...
Right? Drugs might make you a little crazy and dumb, but I don't think that drugs, all of a sudden you become a racist, right? So it does embolden you to maybe say things that you otherwise would not.
You're right, yeah.
That would be my personal opinion, but I haven't had a conversation
What did you feel, or what was your reaction when you... Did they call you? Did they text you? Or did you just saw it through Instagram? And what did you do right away?
The owners of the home, the woman who lived there, she took pictures, Isabel, and she sent it to me. And she's like, Mija, they tagged the mural. And I said, do you understand what it says? Because I don't think she was looking at the language yet. And I said, this is, it says white power over a mural that's supposed to be uplifting brown people. Yeah. So then she got really scared, right? The whole family became scared, to the point that in the last 4 or 5 months, we've been having conversations about the mural because they almost at a moment felt like it's too much attention, or we don't want to have that sort of notoriety. But I think through this process of understanding like how it became a cultural almost patrimony to that neighborhood, to Costa Mesa declared it a historical culture. So it has all these safe things. The guy who vandalized the mural is being charged with a hate crime.
Nice.
So he's going to federal court,
wow.
And so
well,
I think through, I think through that process now they feel like, let's put ourselves back on the wall and let's celebrate this. So I think there was a switch in the family, which is what I was thinking of. Women seeing themselves and their work as enough or honorable, no matter if you cleaned homes, right? You raised a family, you risked everything. You are nuestras madres, no? So I think that's a beautiful story because the community came together. The women are seeing themselves differently. The whole mural is coming back on the wall. So that's exciting. And we had so many people donate to help me restore it. So all those funds are going into the restoration. I also published new coloring books that I'll be gifting the community for the kids.
That's cool. That's cool.
Yeah, you have to give back. When do you get
those? And
I have the coloring books already, but I'm planning to go back to the wall in the next week and a half.
Oh, and that's where you'll
start working.
Okay, cool.
Yeah, to the vicinity of the neighbors.
And post me up. If there's a chance, I'll stop by. Say hello. And get a coloring book from you.
Yeah. I should brought one.
Maybe next week.
Yeah, so I'm gonna go back a couple of days where I'm gonna clean it up more, and there was some poetry that was put up temporarily that I have to remove in order to put the portraits back on, and we have some very expensive anti-graffiti that's going to go on the wall that's going to continue to protect it in case this happens again.
Yeah, because it's a pretty big mural too.
70 feet long by 8 feet high,
more or less, the size of a CMU wall. Yeah, it's pretty big and it's pretty nice and pretty colorful. I liked it, and
thank you.
Hopefully no one messes with it again.
I don't think so. I think it's unfortunate that this happened, but at the same time, it does continue to bring the community together. It's like the mural has its own life now, and it belongs to the community, and they want to safeguard it and keep it. It doesn't belong to me anymore.
Yeah, and once again, I want to thank you for coming by. Because I do want to showcase also women, women to talk about their beliefs, their ideas. And so far, thanks to all the women, ladies that have came by. Gracias. I know Cynthia. Sí. She came in here once. Cynthia Redobello. I saw her post you up. I think she was at your event. She
was at my opening.
Yeah. At Squeeze My Orange. Her.
Yeah, she's amazing.
Nelson,
she's a
cool.
journalist. She's a journalist. She's working for LA East, and KCET.
KCET. Mm-hmm. So she was here. I know, and I saw her. I'm like, cool. So I've been getting a lot of support from the ladies that have came by. And I think it's cool.
You're doing good work.
It's cool.
It's important to have people who are willing to record these oral histories. I know it's a podcast, but you're interviewing people in the community who are doing work, who are contributing, who are part of history, who are artists, who are running for office, who are historians. So part of what you're doing is so important because these conversations will live on now. And they're part of the city, they're part of the history. You're almost like a oral historian in
Thank
a
you.
way.
Hopefully, and I want to keep building, and like I said, it makes me happy when people come over. It makes me happy that you accepted my invitation, and once again, thank you.
Yeah.
How long have you been doing art? I know we talked about this. It's not I just decided to do art today, but
I've been doing art since I was a child.
Sorry to interrupt. I did see on your Instagram that they you were behind a mural in the alley. Did you do that mural?
Yes, the Santa Ana Community Artists Coalition did. It's a collaboration between many of us.
But they put your name in the picture, in the headline, pretty much. You were awarded with something, or
I
read it real quick.
Yeah, I'm not sure if our names are not on the wall. We usually don't put our names because they're community murals. But if we're talking about that one, it was a 2015 project that we did where we won a city grant.
Nice.
And we did this alley mural through the coalition, the Santa Ana Community Artists Coalition, who turns 10 years this year in October. And our process actually involves the community from concept to production, which means that we did oral surveys with people asking them, like, ¿Qué aman de Santana? What inspires you? And if you had a say, what would you like to see on the walls? And we did that because we wanted to include the voices of Santana and what their city looks like, because what ends up happening through the process of gentrification that we've been seeing happen is that the community doesn't have a choice on what goes up on the walls, and it's the whole public art starts changing. And we wanted to, in a positive way, continue to preserve our stories and preserve the history and of La Cuatro. And so through our murals, what you see on the wall have been the surveys of people saying mi cultura, la quinceañera, el paletero, la arquitectura.
Wow. So I didn't know that.
Yeah, so these are all, right now we have over 2,000 surveys done in the last 10 years, which means 2,000 individual conversations about what your city could look like, or what people in their city would like their city to look like.
Yeah. That's cool.
It's a big responsibility to take those surveys and translate them into a visual process. But we highlight lead artists that help us do this, and then we sketch on the wall, and then we invite the community to come and paint it with us.
Okay.
So they go from design.
So you guys just do the outlines, and then the people come and help.
Correct. So it's almost like artists become community catalysts, and the community becomes artists.
Oh, okay, that's cool.
Right. And some people are like, I don't have an opinion, I don't know what to say, but through the process, it's like, oh yeah, we had a little girl who came and paint with us, and I think she might have been like 8 or 9 years old at the alley. And then she reached out to me 3 years ago because she got into Yale University, and her essay was about working that wall. And she went and announced getting into, a top tier university with the thesis of this wall and her sweater and her acceptance letter. And she went and took her graduation pictures at the wall.
Oh, wow, that's cool.
So to me, that's the art.
Yeah.
It's a beautiful murals, but the art is the process.
Behind the scenes.
And these stories of where people see themselves on the wall, where they're proud of who they are, and they end up writing, an essay to getting into Yale University about a project they did 8 years ago as a little girl. So that to me is
cool.
The most amazing story.
The art part of it.
One of the many amazing stories. And we've had challenges as a grassroots. We've done things.
Does the city go hard? Like, does the city make you guys struggle to do all that, or are they?
We
cool
did.
with it?
10 years ago, we had a wall that was canceled. We were told that we were not good enough to paint the walls of our city. But the good thing is that we persevered, right? We didn't give up.
Going, huh?
We continue to go. And I think that's the lesson, right? You're going to have people who don't believe it. Yeah. And now the city's obviously super happy with everything we do, and awards. But, there's different people that come in and out of office. It's not warm. It's not the city as an entity, right? Yeah. It's just different people.
Yeah. Things change.
Go
up and down, right? Yeah. Like a wave, like a roller coaster.
Right.
Yeah. So back to what was your first introduction to art?
Well, in Colombia as a child, we had a lot of art classes. The nuns were really strict about us being cultured and dance and drawing and painting. So I had a very privileged upbringing.
Was it a women's school?
It was an all-girls Catholic school.
All-girls school.
Yeah, and the mascot was the working bee, which happens to be part of my project now.
Okay. We'll get to that.
So when I came, obviously I was the youngest in my family. I have 2 brothers, but our family wasn't together for many years because everybody was traveling. Some of my brothers had to stay back. So I was the youngest one. I was the one who learned English first. So I became the translator and the official, helper of my family. So I think through so many years of, too much responsibility as a child, and our culture not talking about mental health issues, I was struggling a lot through my teenage years, and then I had my son really young, and I ended up having a mental health breakdown when I was 27, and painting brought me back. Oh, okay. So I started to paint to just express how I was feeling and these things that were so hard to vocalize for me. And that led me to a place of just energetically painting my emotions, expressionist. And through that, I became an artist. I never thought I would show any of those self-portraits that were mostly, but I ended up showing them at Avant Garden. It's a co-op gallery in Santa Ana in the Artist Village, and it used to be in the basement of the Santora building. Now
that we're heading that route, were you in that scene when all the art scene started rising right here in downtown Santa Ana?
No, I mean, that was in the late 90s when the Artist Village got founded. So I had just arrived to Mission Viejo at the time. And I knew Santa Ana, but I knew mostly of La Cuatro, right? Yeah. So my family and I would hang out in La Cuatro. I had no idea that there was an artist village, right? Until later, I was married, and my ex-husband's a musician, and he's a poet, and he used to do open mic at what is the Den, before it used to be the Gypsy Den, right there on the Artist Village on 2nd and Broadway, where Memphis used to be.
Okay, there you go, Memphis. Yeah, in the corner.
So the Santora had like the doors open that night, and I ended up going into the basement and talking to Avant Garden, and they're like, "Oh, these are great." I had a little like printout of the paintings that I was doing. You should come and show them. And for the next art walk, I think this was 2002, 2003. And I showed my first art walk, I sold 2 paintings, and I didn't know. So when I came back home, I had an answering machine back in the day, you know, and like it was blinking, and I played, and it's like, Alicia, this is Joseph. You sold 2 paintings tonight. And I was like, what? I'm not ready. I had no idea they were going to sell, so I really didn't think it through. So I wasn't ready to let them go. Did you sell them
for what you wanted?
Yeah, I mean, they had a price, but emotionally, I didn't think it was going to happen. Like, there was no chance I'm selling anything, right? So when it did happen, I was like, what? I was kidding. Yeah.
Never mind.
But no, I did sell them. But that's cool. So it was the beginning of, I guess, showing your work.
The career.
And yes.
Because now it's your career, right?
Now it's my career.
So now actually you're getting paid all the time now, right? Pretty much
I mean, it's an entrepreneurship, really, because you're applying for grants and fellowships, and you're getting commissions. You know, sometimes I'm invited to speak at different colleges because of the type of work that I've been doing. I've received grants through the city. My latest residency was partially funded by the Andy Warhol Foundation.
Andy Warhol?
Yes, in New York City.
Oh, okay. What is that? It sounds familiar.
Andy Warhol was a pop artist in the 60s and 70s. Okay, he did the Campbell suits.
Yeah, he's the one that sings I know, he sings a couple songs.
He did art for the Velvet Underground.
Oh, he's an artist. Okay, yes.
He's an artist. He's a pop artist. Yeah.
But Andy Warhol,
Yeah, it was all that fantastic time. But he died, and they put all his money in a foundation.
He's the one that has the color faces, right?
Yes, he had a lot of that print art and stuff.
Yeah, okay.
And he was... They call him, I believe, the founder of pop art or something like that. I don't know what his...
No, well, that's cool, you know. That's cool. And now, I guess, now that you're getting paid for what you do, I mean...
Yeah.
Which is cool, you know.
It's been a transition. It's also come at a lot of hard work and sacrifice, because I didn't have the privilege to go to art school. I didn't have the privilege to do this before. So I know artist journey is linear, I should say. Everybody has their own journey. Yeah. So this was mine, you know, and I worked full time in corporate world. I was an accountant for many years. I worked for a developer.
Yeah, you're telling me.
And it got me through, you know, being a single mom and putting my son through college, and being a homeowner, and saving up for this moment where I was going to finally take time for this transition. I've never had the privilege of time and space to create art, and I was offered the residency at Grand Central that came with funding, and it was just perfect timing. So I've been doing that, and I'm a finalist right now for another fellowship. So you have to continue to apply to different opportunities, and I get commissions mostly for public art and murals and stuff like that.
Well, yeah, well, that's cool because, and congratulations, because I get it, you know, like I make music, you know, and now I do this.
Yeah, it's hard.
And it's pretty much like secondary. Obviously, I go where I know I'm making money already.
Right.
So for me to transition to that would be awesome. You know what I mean? I mean, not that I'm happy doing what I'm doing, but I get it. It's like, okay, I'm getting paid for this. You know?
Right.
That's cool. That's what I'm saying. So congratulations to you on that.
Yeah, it's still a gig world, right? And sometimes there are a lot of opportunities, and you can't say no because you don't know what's going to happen in the next 6 months, you know, through the economy. So I'm still learning, and I'm still learning how to balance this life and see how much legs I have, and hopefully continue to be passionate in what I do. And what gave me privilege for some time to do the kind of work that I wanted to do is that it wasn't attached to my living, right?
Yeah.
So for so many years, I did a lot of volunteer work in Santa Ana. I did all these community murals, you know, as a volunteer. I got grants to get the materials and small stipends for different artists. But a lot of my previous work was from the heart and con ganas and passion and for the community.
And that's what's cool too, because
it helped me build my portfolio, you know, and it also helped me make mistakes and understand and learn.
That's how we learn.
Yeah, and I think art for me has been a process to educate myself.
Yeah. No, yeah, and we gotta follow to learn pretty much, right? And take the obstacles that are come along with it.
Yeah, much. And you know, lo que le dije yo a mi hijo too, you know, he's a musician. He's going to school for music education. We have to try at some point to follow our dreams, you know, and I try to do it the most responsible way.
Just taking that step, that's all we need to do.
And it's scary.
Yeah.
And there are anxious times because, you know, I used to have a consistent paycheck. But there's nothing like getting paid for what you're doing and what you love and making a living of that. It's beautiful, but it also can be compromising. Yeah. Right? There's sometimes that I don't want to take a commission, so I have to think about it carefully, like who's the commission for, what is the art that they're trying to do. But sometimes now as a full-time artist, you have to do that dance, right? You have to do that dance. I need the funding, might not be the best project. When I was in corporate world, I could just choose the projects that I really wanted to do because my livelihood wasn't attached to it. So I'm learning.
Sometimes the little ones are the ones that help for the big ones. And sometimes the big ones are only for a little while, you know?
Right, exactly.
Even if it's like, okay, I'm making more money here, but maybe you never work with that guy again, you know, because...
And there's a lot of that.
And it's the one that paid a little is like, hey, you know what? I got something else, or they'll recommend you, and it's a little ladder, you know. It's a wave. It's a roller coaster. You know?
Right.
So you gotta.
I'm enjoying it, enjoying the process, learning, growing through it, educating myself through it too.
Yeah. No. Yeah. Also, I wanted to ask now that you were talking about the working bee.
Oh yeah.
Is that something? From family that you do, or is that something you got into yourself with the...
So now I'm a beekeeper, I guess.
Yeah, that's what I...
Yeah.
How's that?
It's been amazing.
How long have you done that?
The last 6 months.
Oh, okay, wow.
But I grew up around bees in my school in Colombia because the nuns' mascot was the bees. They had like a whole agricultural program. There were hives that were tending to. And the symbolism of the bees being working for a collaborative purpose, working for a collaborative vision, that without each one of them, the work doesn't get done. That they're all born knowing their place and their role, and without them, the whole ecosystem would fall apart, right? Because so I find it beautiful, and what I was trying to do with this exhibition was draw a line between human and nature and talk about forced migration. So when we think about forced migration with bees, let's say, which a lot of people maybe don't know, a lot of native pollinators have been ravaged to climate change, pesticides, GMOs. So beekeeping has become a domestic business for beekeepers, where they raise the bees and they lend them to agricultural fields at different times of the year in different parts of the country, so the bees can go and pollinate. So what happens is that the bees are made to travel. So they're put in, they come in their hives, in their boxes, and they're put into trucks or trains, and they travel at night into the next agriculture field. And what's so magical is when they land, they immediately go back into their cycle and their purpose. They go out and find the flower and pollinate, come back in.
Do they
lay
come back
eggs.
to their...
Yes, every evening.
Oh, wow.
They have a sense of direction that's sacred geometry. There's the wiggle dance. There's so many layers to what they do, but then there's also human force migration. So I read an article where Delta Airlines forgot 3 million bees in their plane. The plane got delayed. It was going to Hawaii. And somebody forgot that there were live bees on the plane. 3 million bees died with lack of oxygen in the trunk of the plane.
In the plane.
3 months later, I read 42 immigrants die in the back of a truck in Texas as they're being transported into the country, undocumented. What are these two groups coming to do? They're coming to work the land, take care of the children, and we still have these borders. And it's so counterproductive. I mean, look what's happening in Florida right now, and all these anti-immigrant laws have made a lot of our immigrant community in Florida flee for the last 2-3 weeks, where their crops are going bad, construction's not getting done, right?
Yeah.
So it's this hate.
Like it's the same, huh?
Yeah, it's
the
how
worker bees.
The
labor force.
That's right?
That's what we're called, the labor force.
Right. And so we make this arduous journeys where our families die, and at the same time we're coming here to work the land.
Yeah.
And we got to start thinking differently, because climate change is upon us, and we already have climate refugees. What a lot of people don't think of is like Central Americans that are coming into this country are leaving their farmlands because they can't grow crops anymore due to GMOs and drought. So they're starving, so they have to make, and violence takes, like we have heard from El Salvador, and so people travel up here, even risk their lives, get on the beast, and if they make it across, they're working. Yeah. They're working class. They're working people. Are there exceptions, to each culture? Of course, there's bad people in every part. Yeah. But this is not. It's an exception. It's not the rule. Yeah. Right.
Yeah, and that makes a lot of sense how you're saying it. Like the way you put it, like the worker bees, the labor force, and at the same time, I'm kind of speaking for myself. In reality, not for myself, but from what I've seen, in reality, we kind of all know our place. I'm talking about like, not really in my because I work with men, and it seems like all those men were built. A lot of immigrant men, I mean, there's not just immigrant men, but the men that are in that labor force, it just seems like they know their place. Same like the bees, they fall in, build, go back to where they have to come back to do that later again.
Right, and it's a community,
it's
right?
It's a good way to put it.
It's so I'm just playing with some of these analogies. I'm trying to draw lines. And I wanted to show our resilience of people, resilience as immigrants, resilience as bees and nature. So part of what I did is I made bee wax sculptures, which is the product that the bees already give us. They make wax when they make their homes, the honeycomb. And
wax as in what kind of wax?
It's bee wax.
What is that used for? Like, is the honey?
It's where they place the honey, where they place the eggs, the comb. Okay. So they build their homes in these comb. And the comb is perfect because there's different phases. This is where they lay the eggs. This is where they put the food. This is where they make the honey. This is where they sleep. This is their home.
Yeah.
Which makes me think that no matter of the environment, and if the boxes or the hive or the colony is moved to Alaska to pollinate those fields during their spring and summer, the bees continue to build their home inside.
Oh, wow.
Right? So that's kind of the analysis of immigrants continue to build their home regardless of where they land, you know, and some homes are stronger than others regarding if what's your environment, was there enough love, was there enough water, did they get enough nectar, you know. So I made the sculptures first out of beeswax, which is the product they already gave us, and I put them back in the hives. And through the last 3 or 4 months, the bees built on the sculptures additional honeycomb.
Oh, dang.
So it's a collaboration between myself and the bees.
That's cool. And also,
which is so cool.
Yeah, that is cool. Well, because the people that I work with, I'm like, oh, I'm gonna have another podcast. I mentioned it. Oh, what are you gonna do? I'm gonna have another podcast. And I kind of showed my cousin, and I was like, I think she does art with the with the honeycombs, you know, with the bees built. Mm-hmm. I'm like, I don't know if she shapes them or if they're already shaped.
No, I shaped them first. So they make the wax, they make a honeycomb, and when the honey is being taken out by beekeepers, they have a process to take the honey out. The bee wax is left, right? And they melt it, and it becomes like candles, right? Bee wax is usually candles as well.
Okay.
There's all kinds of products that come out of bee wax. So when I saw a block of bee wax, I was out in Colombia doing research, and through my grant, I was able to go back home, and I haven't been back to Colombia in many years. I've only been able to go back twice from the time that I moved here. So I had this beautiful experience of going back home and meeting a beekeeper in the Andes, and he showed me this block of bee wax. I'm like, oh, I think I might be able to sculpt from that. But then I thought it'd be so interesting to see what happens if I put it back into the box and see if they build on it. Because it's almost that theory of, like, are you going to build on anywhere that you land? And but it was already their product, so they could smell the honey or whatever that, you know, they could smell from a bee wax. So they just started building around it.
Nice.
So
that's weird. I mean, that's weird in a good way, you know, like a trick.
Yeah,
That's a trick.
so it's a collaboration. So you have this beautiful shapes that I made organically, abstractively, but almost they look like flowers. And then you have the honeycomb that the bees built on their own, which symbolizes to me the continuation of their purpose, their continue to build, and how beautiful it looks. And I like to highlight their resilience and our resilience as immigrants, and continuing to build our homes.
¿Dónde haces esto? Like, ¿dónde vas a agarrar la miel, las avispas?
So through my grant, I was able to hire a consultant, and he's a beekeeper. His name is Alejandro Soto with the Bee Army. Everybody, if you ever need bees, if you have bees at your home, do not kill them. Call a bee rescue. We need the bees. Call Alejandro. He's here local. He's in Orange County. He's actually a vet.
Oh, okay.
And we hit it off in our first interview, and he was open and willing enough to let me work with his bees and see if we can make this happen. So I've learned a lot through him, and I also find his personal story with the bees beautiful. You know, he was stationed in Afghanistan, and he came back trying to figure out life, you know, through a vet, and you don't know, God knows what they've gone through, and PTSD and all kinds of things, and the bees have helped him keep busy, find healing, find a beautiful purpose of rescuing them, and he's out there every day now rescuing bees and taking the bees. You know, the bees, I had 8 hives for this project. I kept 1 hive at my home permanently. So the other 7 hives, he went to pick them up and took them in the middle of the night, and they're now in Central Valley pollinating.
Central Valley, where's that at?
I think Bakersfield area.
Oh, okay.
Mm-hmm. Which is fascinating, right? Because it continues this migration stories. Like, they were at my home and they help with these bee sculptures, and they pollinate in my garden.
So pretty much the bees are even architects.
Exacto. Oh, they're
Right?
amazing architects, and the hectagons they make is perfect.
Wow.
They are perfect mathematical genius. They build according to the sun. They dance. They do a wiggle dance to tell everybody else where the food is at. If they found, a field of flowers close by that has a lot of pollen or nectar, the gatherers come and do this dance that's called the wiggle dance. And depending how long they dance and the shapes they do is geometrically match to angles of how far they have to go and how long they have to fly.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
Like
they're mathematical geniuses and sacred geometry.
Yeah, I didn't know that. Like they're insects, and we expect them not to just to fly around, That's what we think of them. Or nos van a picar, pretty much.
Yeah, I mean they'll come and bite you if you're trying to take their home and their honey, right?
Have you been bitten by them?
Yes.
Yeah.
I have been stung over 5-6 times during
Recently,
this process.
Yeah.
I got stung in Colombia when I first went,
wow.
and then when they first came home, I got stung that night, and then every weekend after that until I finally got the hang of it.
But the fifth one didn't hurt as much no more, huh?
There's a whole thing about bee venom being healthy for you, and as long as you're not allergic, if people are allergic, you could die. Yeah. So you got to know if you have a bee allergy. Gratefully, I don't. So I was able to experience the whole thing, and they give up their life to sting you because they die.
Yeah.
Half of their body. Protecting their home.
Their home, huh?
Protecting their home.
Wow.
They won't come at you unless they feel threatened.
Oh, okay.
So now through this process of me being with the bees, learning, working with the sculptures in my garage, they come visit me, and
wow.
I'm not scared anymore, or I don't react anymore, so they crawl.
Oh, yeah?
And on sundown, they go back into their
wow.
hive. So it's a whole process too.
That's cool. I didn't know that. I learned a lot today.
And honey,
a lot from bees.
Honey is
important.
And
I don't know if it's bee honey, but I know honey comes from bees. It's the losito, that little.
Mm-hmm.
Is that from bees?
Oh,
maybe
honey
processed
should come,
already.
Yeah, sometimes depending on the brand, they go through a process to. And I don't know, you don't have to do anything to honey, really. Honey is very permeable. It lasts up to 2,000 years. So if there's
oh, wow.
Yeah, if there's some hungry
years?
phantom, if there's honey around, you can eat it.
I use honey for anginas.
Yeah.
You know what anginas are?
No.
Sore throat, like when your throat is like, when you get a cold and the first thing I do, like right away, a lemon with some honey.
You can make a hot toddy too.
Yeah. Oh yeah, and I put it on teas and stuff. But it helps me right away.
Yeah, absolutely. And the beekeeper in Colombia swears about. There is a thing that beekeepers live a really long time, longer than most people. They say there's a buzz also that balances out your central nervous system. It's been talked about helping PTSD victims.
Oh, wow.
There's something about the sound, right, and the key that they buzz in. There's also all the products. There's the honey, but there's also propolis, which is this little black sticky things. It's almost like when they clean their legs, and it's all part of pollen as well with honey, and it gets attached to the hive or to the box, and beekeepers. The Trader Joe's has now propolis shots. Propolis is this product that they do that's like a sticky black kind of thing, or brown, or really dark red, depending on what flowers they've been doing, and it's very sticky. But the beekeeper in Colombia dilutes that a little bit and makes a spray for sore throat, or makes a spray for mosquito bites. So the joke when I went to Colombia is put a little propolis in it, porque en todo momento es ay, échale un poquito de propolis. Oh, estás enferma, propolis. Oh, your throat hurts, propolis. Oh, so the beekeepers really are sacred when they do it right, because they use every product of the bee. They honor the bee. They take care of the bees. it was beautiful to see this beekeeper having his hives in the mountains, right? You have to hike down there, and
I think I saw pictures of that on your Instagram.
It's so gorgeous.
Yeah. How was Colombia when you went? I mean, the last time you went was recently.
Yeah, just recently.
Do you go a lot?
No, I just finally, like I said, was able to go back my second and third time this past year in 2022. I had only been able to go back once with my mother before she passed away. So I'm very grateful that
at least
happened.
You went with your mom,
Yeah, because that's how we came. My mom died in 2015 of early onset Alzheimer's, and it was a very painful and difficult process. But I'm so grateful that we got to go back, and now that I got back to Colombia, I got to see some family that's still there and just reconnect with the paradise that our country is. It's just so gorgeous, and you're driving down the Andes, and the weather is perfect, and you understand why all these beautiful agriculture and coffee and papayas and guayabas, and it's just,
you're making it sound super fun.
It's gorgeous. It's gorgeous. It's really beautiful. There is one of the most biodiverse countries in the world, with the most kind of birds and flowers and biodiversity. We're really lucky. We have the Pacific, the Caribbean, the Atlantic Ocean.
Is it safe to go? I mean, it's not like...
I believe so. I believe things have changed and improved drastically in the last 30 years that I've been here. It still has its issues. Of course, the drug war continues, but unfortunately that's moved to Mexico now. And I believe that if we still grow, it's actually growing for Mexican cartels. We don't have the drug lords that we used to have. Pablo Escobar inspired El Chepe and El Chapito and all of them. He was the first psychopath in a way too. I mean, a lot of people in Colombia respected him. Not in Colombia, in Medellin, where he's from, loved him because he helped the poor. But he also killed indiscriminately innocent people.
Yeah, it's like they say about El Chapo,
Yeah.
And he does bad things, but at the same time helps.
He helped, right? So it's a difficult subject. It's sensitive, but we also had a peace agreement between the guerrillas and the government, where the guerrillas disarmed in the last 5 years. And that's actually helped. Colombia just elected its first liberal president. Most of our leftists or liberals that were running for office would be killed before they could even make it. So he made it so far, and he chose
politicians still get killed over there.
Yeah, I mean, it's happened.
It's still hardcore.
This was a big test for Colombia this past 2 years, I think, because for some reason, obviously, the United States has been very involved in our politics in South America, and killing socialist movements and things like, putting in dictators. And they've been hands off for a while in some sort of way. But Colombia was able to elect its first leftist leader. Is he going to be good or not? I don't know, but it is history in the making. I agree with a lot of his policy ideals and vision, but I know it's going to be incredibly difficult to change the whole government in 2 or 4 years. I'm glad that he's elected a VP. That's the first African Colombian woman.
Nice.
So there are some really positive things. Colombia has an amazing art movement in Medellin, where social practice was also a big part of it, which is a lot of the art that I do, which involves the community and collaborations. And so it's beautiful. I mean, but it's still a third world country. We're still dealing with economic injustices. We're dealing with climate change. We're dealing with, corruption in the government as well. But it's not the violent country that it used to be in the 80s.
It went down.
Yeah.
That's good.
I mean, I was able to travel as a woman with my cousin.
Oh, with your cousin?
With my cousin by ourselves.
A girl too? Lady too?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
We drove across the country in the middle of the night and even got lost. And I'm glad to say we had a beautiful experience and all los pueblitos. Pero también, as any traveler should do,
carry a gun.
Be savvy, right?
You gotta be careful.
You gotta know where you're going. Aquí, exacto. ¿A qué hora sales? ¿Con quién dónde vas?
Careful,
Exacto. ¿A qué hora sales? ¿Dónde sales? ¿Con quién sales? I mean, all of it. I mean, it's still the same. You can't be, you gotta
I'll
have a
carry a
street
gun.
smart. You gotta be a street smart.
Yeah, you gotta be safe. You can't
guns
just
scare
trust
me.
that easy, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, but yeah, any goals, any plans you have right now? Any work that you're doing right now? Any shows you're gonna do right now?
Yeah, so my exhibition's open until September. So I hope everyone come out to Grand
downtown
Central.
Santa Ana?
Grand
In the
Central
train
Arts
station?
Center. Grand Central Arts Center is in the Artist Village.
Okay.
It's on Broadway and 2nd Street. It's where the fountain is.
Okay, at the Artist Village.
Yes.
So when you pass first on Broadway to the right.
Yes, right there.
In front of Next Round, for those who don't know.
Exactly.
Exactly.
So I'll be showing my new work there, and
Till
then
September, you
September.
said? Okay.
And then I'm restoring the Poderosas mural in the next couple of weeks.
Okay.
So that's going to be exciting. And I'm a finalist for a fellowship right now that I'll find out if I land it at the end of this month. And if I do, hopefully, excitingly, I'll be working with Latino Health Access on a big project.
Oh, okay. I've heard of Latino Health Access. There's one in downtown, right?
Yes, it's right in downtown. They're also on 3rd and Birch.
Yeah, I seen it somewhere.
By El Indio.
Oh yeah,
on the other side of the
by
parking lot.
Yeah, okay. I know I seen it somewhere.
Yeah, and
that's where they give food out. Or food
and
banks.
they're it was founded by America Baracho. Dr. America Baracho is an amazing woman. If you don't know who she is, Google her. She founded Latino Health Access with other leaders 30 years ago, and it was to help create more health equities, addressing different areas that were not being addressed. Like we didn't have enough public parks, a lot of the initiatives from Latino Health Access was to create parks to lower diabetes, but not to go to the doctor and say, okay, you got to start eating better, right? Because a lot of people were like, oh, you got to eat better, but like, I don't have money to afford eating better or traveling outside the city. What does that look like to people who have diabetes, right? So she was addressing some of these concerns by involving the community in their own problem solving. And so it's a promotor model. And what I hope to do is highlight the underrepresented voices in that community and everything that they did for our communities during COVID. And they're first responder heroes and getting people assistance and help and
That's
vaccinations cool. And going into neighborhoods where people were so scared of coming out because they're undocumented and they're getting ill information, or they had like 3 or 4 deaths in the family because hay 3 familias who live in one apartment.
Wow.
So they're amazing heroes. They're working class women who were not medically trained, but with dedication and passion curbed COVID in Orange County.
Real quick, what do you think of there's a recent woman that got inaugurated, I think that's what you call it. She even got her own street here in Santa Ana. Helen M. Ship, something like that. She's African American. Did you hear about that?
Yes, Councilman Hernandez.
Yeah, helped out with
Artesia
that.
Pilar. I think it's beautiful, and this is where we're talking about public art and underrepresented voices of history in our city.
I didn't even know that. And I used to live by there. I used to see her son every day hang out in the front, and then little, with coincidence, it's his house. That the mom, they're celebrating her mom.
This is like hands down to Councilman Jonathan Hernandez, because I think he really understands the power of art and culture and music, and the roles they play in our communities and how we uplift. So he's young too. He's right on all the issues, and I'm just so proud to see him like push for these festivals to come back and. To celebrate Indigenous Day and to celebrate Black history in Santa Ana. The Black Parade used to happen here. We had a lot of African Americans that used to live in Santa Ana. And, they've been gentrified out. They've also left. But it's been part of our history, So knowing that is so important. I love a lot of the things that are happening when it comes into public art in the city. There's going to be also an homage to Chinatown that was burnt in downtown. And that was a hand with the city government many, many years ago. That was over 100 years ago. But you can Google it. Gustavo Arellano at the time wrote a beautiful article detailing the history of Chinatown and the awful racism that happened. So
there was a Chinatown here?
In downtown.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, in downtown Santa Ana.
Wow.
Yeah, and it was burned purposely.
Wow.
Yeah, through racism. It was burned.
See, I didn't
One
know that.
person,
I learned a lot today.
yeah, one person was burnt in it.
Yeah.
When Chinese American and Chinese Americans came here to help us build the railroads.
Yeah.
You know, without the railroads that you see, there were immigrants of Chinese Americans. So of course, when you come into a new country, you still build a home.
Yeah.
You know, and they had their market and they had their small Chinatown, their whole community, and through racism and the city council at the time, kind of. So many years later, you know, now the city did a proclamation of forgiveness, of asking for forgiveness from the Chinese community, which even though it wasn't this city council, right, or us, it's almost like reparations of acknowledging the hurt that has been made. And we also did a little mural in that alley paying homage to Chinatown. So if you go to that alley, you'll actually see.
I'll check it out.
We got a picture from the Santa Ana History Room of Chinese Americans building the railroad, and we put that on the wall because it's historic, you know, and that's what murals should do. So yeah, it's Viva Santana is the name of the mural, and it has a bunch of historical things on it.
Well, in Santana, I mean, like I said earlier, we're used to seeing a lot of brown faces, but in reality, there's black people, there's Asians, there's white people, you know?
Yeah, I mean, it's the history of what Santana has been, right? Right now, Santana is mostly an immigrant community. I think the last census, we were at 76% immigrant community, right? Mm-hmm. Different neighborhoods could go up to 86 to 90% immigrant community. So yeah, right now it's not as diverse. Definitely downtown, you could see more of a diversity, but Santana continues to be predominantly an immigrant city.
Yeah, which gives it culture, you know, which gives it a different light. That's how I see it.
It's Orange County, right?
Yeah.
I mean, you need a Santana.
Yeah,
Imagine Orange County in Santana. I mean, it'd be the most boring, dull place.
To me, it gives it a different light, you know.
I mean, it's there's an art scene that happens here that doesn't happen anywhere else, and I think it's unrepresented still. All the amazing things that come from Santana. You know, you have amazing writers and documentarians and photographers. You have a lot of people doing amazing work here in Orange County and Santana. I'm very proud of it.
The lowrider scene. I know I just was thinking that right now. You know, in reality, Santana has an art scene, and maybe we don't see it like that, but in reality, it's even rich in that aspect. You know, the lowrider scene has always been
right. I mean, Bristol Street. You're talking about
the it's been around. You know, and it's
cruising, and it became
Latinos
illegal.
making Mexicans, Americans making art of their cars. You know, making a sport out of their cars. So there's a lot of art here, you know, in different ways.
And I think it's also a symbol of pride, right? I've traveled so much, or I've lived in so many different areas, but Santana has been my home, or where I most belonged.
Your home.
It made it my home. It felt more like home than any other place I've lived in, and collaborated. You know, I've been part of the artist community here for the last 20 years now. You know, so it's definitely my home, but it also, I think, speaks to the identity of how proud people are, and I think it has to do with Orange County is just so way different. You know, we used to call it the Orange County, the Orange Curtain, which meant that it was such a conservative county. It was mostly Republicans, very affluent, you know, so you had Santana community you know, really keeping Orange County going, like who's cutting the grass, who's taking care of the kids, who's in our kitchens, you know, obviously, right? And all our communities coming back here to work. And now Orange County's changed so much because of it too, I think. Orange County's become more diverse and become more democratic, which you have a board of supervisors that's more democratic now. I mean, you could have never even thought of that. So more in the spectrum, you know, like Manny could say. Yeah.
No, well, I learned a lot today. I learned a lot today. I learned a lot about women, you know, that have done something like the one from San Clemente. What's her name? The first felon.
San Juan Capistrano, Modesta Ávila.
San Juan Capistrano, you know, about bees. It was a real interesting conversation.
Thank you for having me.
And I would want to go longer, but sometimes the camera, you know, goes down. But I really appreciate you coming by, you know, and for taking the time to come here.
Yeah, thank you.
And maybe in the near future we could come by and do this again, you know.
Give an update and keep doing what you're doing. I think it's so important to get all these voices and get to share your stories and talk about Santana and talk about culture and art and politics. I mean, we need these spaces. We need to continue to tell these stories. So I'm really honored to be here. Thank you so much.
Real quick, do you want to, if you want to send a message out to anybody that's hearing, maybe young ladies, young men, and if you want to do some shout outs, go ahead.
Yeah, no, I just, I think perseverance and not giving up on your dreams is important. I think all artists' journeys are not linear. Sometimes we're privileged to go to school, sometimes we're not. Don't let any of that stop you, and don't let other people's opinion about you stop you. And I think that's important. When you work with the community and your intentions are good and you do hard work, you will get through, you know, and hopefully you will continue to build on the work of others that have been here before you, like Marina Aguilera. I'm standing on her shoulders. You know, she did these beautiful murals here in the 1970s, 1990s. Wow. So you have all these legends here. You have all these amazing people, and we just continue to build on and pass it on to the young kids. Yeah. You know, I do a lot of work with the community and young kids, and it's important to give them an outlet. So
no, well, thank you for that. You know, and take advice, because let's pass it. You know, that's the plan to our future generations. Any shout outs?
No, just hello everybody.
Hello.
Thank you.
To
the girls, of course, the coalition, the artists, you know, the community. Shout out to you.
Yeah, shout outs. Well, once again, thank you for coming by. You. Stay tuned for more episodes. Thank you, Alicia.
Thank you.
I enjoyed it. Stay tuned for more episodes. Go like and subscribe, and don't forget to check out my music. And where can they follow you, Alicia?
Alicia Rojas and Instagram is probably the best way.
Okay. Is there a certain way to spell it?
ALICITAROJAS.
Okay. And where can they see your mural in Costa Mesa?
The Poderosas mural is off Baker and Harbor.
Okay.
And downtown, you'll see a lot of the coalition's murals, which is all collaborations between many of us and many artists. We have work in the alley. We have work on Sycamore and 5th. We have work in Myrtle, in Townsend communities, and a lot of other different areas of downtown.
Nice. Well, there you go. Go check them out. Go support Alicia. She's doing her thing. And much love. Peace.